Now that we're through the discussion of the interface, the toolbox, and the palettes on the right-hand side and so on, what I thought I would do is mention a couple of quick ways that you can work inside the Photoshop interface. And I think that you'll really like this, especially once you get more and more used to working inside Photoshop. So here's what I'd like you to try. Whether you have an image open or not, try this. Try hitting your Tab key on your keyboard, whether you're on a Mac or a PC. And what that does is that temporarily disables the toolbox on the left-hand side and the palettes on the right-hand side and that option bar that was running across the top of the interface. I'm sure you remember that guy. So simply Tab, and then to bring everything back to life, just hit Tab again, and we're back to where we started. Now, why is that cool? Why is this useful? Well, oftentimes I'll be zoomed in nice and close on an image. Maybe I'm doing some color correction, or maybe I'm doing some cleanup, or something like this. And the interface is just too cluttered. There's stuff in the way, and I can't really see my image very well. All I want is just a little bit of elbow room inside Photoshop. So to get that extra elbow room, all I'm going to do is simply hit the Tab key. And now it's almost like I'm working in this. It's almost like a full screen view, isn't it? Now I have a lot of screen real estate here to work around inside my image and to, manipulate my image and see what's happening. And then bring everything back just by hitting the Tab key again, right? So, very cool. Now, here's something else I want to bounce off of you as well. Maybe I want to work in more of a full screen capacity, but I want to keep my toolbox turned on the left-hand side. So, in other words, I don't want to turn off the toolbox. I simply want to get rid of the palettes temporarily on the right-hand side. Try this. Try holding down the Shift key and then hit the Tab key on your keyboard. And what that will do is that will temporarily disable the palettes on the right-hand side. So I still have all of my tools available to me, which is great, but now I have sort of this larger screen real estate that I can take advantage of, which is great. Shift-Tab to bring everything back on the right-hand side. So there you go. There's a couple of neat options there for you. And, this almost goes without saying, but I'm going to bounce this off you as well. This is kind of getting into the power user area of Photoshop, but give this a try. I'm going to hit Tab on my keyboard. It turns everything off. And then what I'll do is I will hit the H key on my keyboard. And what that does is that flips me over to the hand tool. So if I hit Tab again, just for a second to bring my toolbox back, that actually flipped me over to another tool inside the toolbox. So in other words, while the toolbox and the palettes are turned off or visibly disabled, I can still make use of all of my keyboard shortcuts. I could hit the V key on the keyboard to switch to the Move tool, or L for the Lasso tool, or P for the pen tool, which is very cool. I'll go back to my Move tool just by hitting V here. Or give this a try. I'm going to try hitting F7 on my keyboard, and that'll bring up my layers palette for me. This is something that I haven't mentioned yet, but a lot of your palettes inside Photoshop have keystroke equivalents as well. So you can hit F7 for your layers if you want. Try hitting F8 for your info palette, or hitting F8 once again will disable the info palette. Hitting F7 again will disable the layers palette, and so on. Now, again, I don't know them all, but I know the ones that I use most often. I just hit F6 on my keyboard, and that was for the color palette. Oftentimes, though, I make use of my layers palette, and again, that's F7. So there you go. There's lots of neat ways to work here inside Photoshop. I just hit Tab here again to bring everything back to life, and we're ready to continue on.